Habemus Papam. We have a pope.
And when I'm back in Chicago.
I'm out here collecting heresies like they're Chaos Emeralds, but instead of trying to turn into golden Sonic or white Keanu Reeves, I'm trying to throw hands with Peter at the gates, but I keep forgetting he straight up cut a dude's ear off like it was nothing, so I'm not loving my odds. I don't even have a problem with the guy, I just love procrastination so much I figured I should see how close I can cut it on asking for mercy. Turning the pearly gates into my own personal Waffle House seems like as good a use of my time as any, so I give it like a month before I'm excommunicated.
You leave me no choice but to declare you excommunicado. Your life is now forfeit.
As a famously Catholic YouTuber, not to be confused with a Catholically famous YouTuber, I think that I'm obligated to admit that I haven't seen Conclave.
I would like you to withdraw your name from the next ballot. You are not the right man to be Pope.
I was this close to watching it earlier this year, but now that the Pope's met his doom, I don't want to be one of those people that just watches it because the Pope got taken out by J.D. Vance, you know? It's so frustrating because now, no matter what I say, no one's going to believe that I just happened to watch it, so I got to give it another at least a year before I can buy some believability back. I'm no better than the Oscars voters. So in the meantime, this is my self-inflicted penance. Every so often, the Pope will declare a jubilee. For my non-Catholics who don't know what that is, the Pope is the man dripped out of his mind who rides around in the bulletproof car and sort of runs the church, kinda. He's like the Todd Howard of Catholics, and the Crusades are like Elder Scrolls remasters. I'm sure we all know what a jubilee is, so I won't waste your time with common sense details like that. We all remember Leviticus like it was yesterday, right? The last jubilee was declared in 2015, and as part of the celebration, Pope Francis met with several different popular online figures to discuss the new role that technology was playing in people's lives. Now, this was during the dark ages of YouTube, but the particular event we're here to discuss may have been one of the darkest. Typically, when you meet with a man wearing a big hat, you gotta bring him a cool gift. We all know that. But what do you get for the man who already has great headwear and his own micronation? Well, if your name is Matthew MatPat Patrick, creator of Game Theory et al. And haver of opinions,
don't you tell me how many calories I need, bitch!
Then you get him Undertale. MatPat had always been notorious for his strange controversies due to the aforementioned opinions he has, but the Pope video stands out as a particularly dunked-on entry into the canon. So many questions were left unanswered. Why did we need someone to represent gamers to the Catholic Church? Does the Vicar of Christ have a sick PC build to redeem a Steam key on? Did the Servant of Servants stop at a pacifist playthrough, or did the devil tempt him towards a battle with Sans Undertale? Could he forgive Alphys for her sins? Or was her obsession with anime and manga too much for even Daddy Vatican to bear? Regardless of the intention, it was clear that the world was not yet ready for a gamer pope, and so MatPat was forced to move on to other theories with no hope of context or nuance returning to this discussion. Just grateful that his career hadn't met its doom too. But keen-eared listeners may have picked up on something at the beginning of this tale. Pope Francis is no longer with us. He's gaming on that big Steam Deck in the sky at the top of his own personal Mount Celeste. And as tragic as that may or may not be, it's because of this that our true story can begin. It's like Uncle Ben always said, with new pope come new opportunities. That's why he got shot. Couldn't shut his damn mouth so much he had to face his doom 3 different times. I mean, how many different ways are they going to come up with him to just plagiarize Voltaire? He's not even that great of a philosopher, he's French.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Spider-Man.
Voltaire.
Right.
MatPat may have retired, but his legacy must live on. Before he received his eternal reward, Pope Francis declared 2025 a year of Jubilee, the first one since 2015. And this is where I come in, taking the stage in the final hours and primed to spring on this perfect chance to remind our new Pope of the vital importance of gamers to society. I mean, the dude's from Chicago. This is perhaps the greatest chance we've ever had to get a legitimately gamer-ass Pope. For as it was written, we do live in a society, and I paused my game to be here. I'm like a dog chasing cars. Snow Patrol. If we, the gaming class, are ever going to have a chance to ascend beyond our lowly status, then we need MatPat to return for one last job. We must decide before it's too late, what game should MatPat give to the new Pope? Spoiler warning for the things which I talk about. You'll know them when you see them. Right out the gate, my immediate impulse is Deltarune. Like Deltarune, right? The sequel to the Pope should get the sequel to the Undertale. Seems pretty cut and dry, honestly, but it's almost too easy. If Pope Francis was like any of the other people who've played Undertale, then he wouldn't have shut up about it. So I'm sure Leo XIV has heard more than enough about this franchise for one lifetime. I'm betting there's some Undertale fan art of the Pope and Sans hanging out somewhere in the Sistine Chapel if you look hard enough. My next thought was to pick a game that already had some Catholicism in there to, bridge the gap a little. Depending on how Pope Leo handles his new power, Assassin's Creed 2 could be an interesting choice, just in case he needs a reminder of the temporary nature of the flesh. I've been advised that a thinly veiled threat doesn't make for a great gift at most parties, though, so I kept looking and found a neat little indie title called Indica. Neat little indie title. It's more recent, pretty popular, and it has nuns. A promising start, but after a moment of digging into the actual plot, I don't think the Pope will get this one, gamers.
Indica, a subversive, self-endeavorous, multi-meta-layered, non-perspective, conscious-driven action answer seeker out now.
The Vatican loves its art and all, but this one might not be up their alley. All the best stuff was just a prank by Michelangelo anyway. That skateboarding rascal loved his dick and balls and ass. Just shooting in the dark clearly wasn't getting me anywhere, so I turned back to the source material. What were the elements that made MatPat choose Undertale over all the other games out there? When faced with such a Herculean task, what wisdom did he seek? My odyssey through the old country of 2010's YouTube led me to a great discovery. I found amongst that millennial hellscape the 3 R's: recent, received well, and relevant. More specifically, the game needed to be released within about a year, received positively by a respectively sized player base, and related to Pope Francis's theme for this Jubilee, Pilgrims of Hope. There's also the secret 4th requirement that you're sort of supposed to play a game before you recommend it to anyone, much less His Holy Eminence. And that one was immediately a problem because, despite what my badass gamer look and cool as hell gamer swag may lead you to believe, I've never been one to play games until years after they release. I just got around to Metal Gear Solid, okay? You expect me to have time for another Modern Warfare 3? I barely liked the last one they did. So yeah, if I wanted to pick something recent, then it probably wouldn't be a game I'd played before, which meant I would need to buy and complete any game I wanted to consider. Not being made of time and money, this could only mean one thing. I would have to do research. A gamer's worst nightmare. But my love for this community was too great to let that stop me, so I booted up my gaming device and discovered that it can also be used to read articles and learn new things. Whatever that means. Overwhelmed by options, recency was my best bet at immediately shrinking the pool. So I looked up the 2024 Game Awards and then immediately remembered that no self-respecting gamer gives a shit about the Game Awards. Sorry, Astrobot, I'm sure you're great and all, but the gamers have spoken and you're trash. Absolute garbage. Since I needed to cover well-received games anyway, I just decided to search for best games lists and best-selling lists for the past year and started combing through them for the 3rd R, relevant. With a quick scramble over to my bookmarked webpage for the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, I was able to learn a bit more about the vague theme for this year of Jubilee, to renew ourselves as Pilgrims of Hope. The basic idea is to face the fears and uncertainties of this world and continue our journey with the belief that we can just work our way through whatever obstacles we'll meet along the way. A noble goal given the events of 2025 so far, but most importantly for me, also a pretty good way of cutting out some entries. The Black Ops 6s and Silent Hill 2s of the world would have to try again another time. As much as I love CGI Bill Clinton and killing my wife, spoilers, they weren't exactly giving hopeful Pilgrim vibes. Before long, I was down to a list of 3 games that seemed like well-rounded candidates. Pacific Drive, 1,000 Times Resist, and Wanderstop. The plan was simple. Play each of these games and give them a rating on my patented Popeability scale to determine how palpable the Pope's positivity would be regarding the possible presentation of this purchased playable present. There's no way that audio is usable. The plosives are completely out of hand. Why did Pope have to start with a P? I had this dream once where I was driving down a dark road at night in the rain, and there was this hitchhiker next to me who just kept shoving sticks of beef jerky into my mouth, still in the plastic wrap, and telling me fun facts about mushrooms, interspersed with the occasional reminder that if I don't learn to open my heart to change, I will live to watch everyone I love die or leave me. I turned to chastise him for judging my soul without comprehending the chains of my flesh, but his gaze kept shifting away from mine, like little globs in a lava lamp. And when I turned my attention back to the road, I saw myself standing in the headlights, head tilted to the side as if to ask, why contend with the failings of another when you cannot even find the strength to save yourself? I woke to the sound of crumpled metal and crunching bones. This game is kind of like that. Pacific Drive is a road trip type game where you play as the most mentally stable gig worker in the Pacific Northwest, John Drive. In this timeline, Chernobyl wasn't a disaster, it was a challenge, and the United States responded by nuking Washington with science and capitalism before Kurt Cobain could even think about trying to J.D. Vance himself. There's a story somewhere in here, but it doesn't matter. All that's important is the road and the horrors of driving in present-day Seattle. I love zooming around in this station wagon so much. I wish Ryan Gosling was real. This game distills the mundane joys of car maintenance and road trip planning into a truly addictive gameplay loop. Every trip is a series of pre-planned stops to collect materials and see some truly bizarre roadside attractions. Just like in real life, the deeper into the Northwest you go, the more strange it all gets until a fish in the percolator is the least of your worries.
Fellas, don't drink that coffee.
There was a fish in the percolator.
Sorry.
There was a fish.
The pilgrimage of hope is quite literal in this one. You are actually taking journeys through adversity to find a way out of this mess. Every objective leads you deeper into the zone and closer to that fist fight with St. Pete that waits for me on the other side. The obstacles along the way are quite quirky and interesting. There's been a bit of a surge in games about hanging out in weird anomaly zones, but I think this game in particular avoids some of the cliches like weird mutant things and raiders. The things in this zone are genuinely strange and hostile in an almost casual way. The place simply does not want you there, and it's populated with horrors which I comprehend just fine, thank you, whose sole purpose is to send your ass home in a box. The fun of this game comes from learning about all the strange threats and finding ways to live alongside them for as long as possible before hightailing it out of there. As you get more accustomed to everything, you'll start to find yourself making all kinds of changes and decisions on the fly. The game quickly upgrades from short, well-planned routes to scavenge basic materials, to frantic races between small pockets of stability just to grab a special piece of metal that helps you build a blowtorch that fixes dents in your hood. I love this game so much that I actually have a whole different video talking about it in the works. You'll get it when you get it, but if you want it faster, make me famous so I can do this shit full time. Yeah, that's the closest to a call to action I feel comfortable with. Do I look like the outgoing sort to you? The biggest issue for his popeliness would probably be the fact that this game can be a bit unforgiving. Everything except for the frame of your car is under threat of being destroyed at all times, and the resources to fix things up are surprisingly hard to come by. If you get caught in a really bad part of town, or if you lose control of your car during a chase, you can say goodbye to hours of work in a moment. And all that's left to do is climb back up that mountain. Don't get me wrong, that's definitely intentional game design, but it can also be incredibly frustrating, especially if you're new to video games in general. Until we can establish gamers as a force for the Pope to reckon with, I have to assume this is a pretty rough entry point for the Primate of Italy? Look it up, I swear, that's an actual title for this guy. On the Popeability scale, I'm gonna have to give this one a positively popalicious. For reference, that's like giving Citizen Kane a preeminently popular. Yeah, I know.
Sister, what are you doing out here?
In times like these, despair is found in abundance. It's easy to look around you and wonder if the world has ever seen anything like this before. You look to prior generations, and you find that all the things they fought for are blips in the past. Some proud victories and others shameful defeats, but none of them seem to hold the key to today. So you vow not to become like them, to find the thing that will solve these problems and finally put an end to this fear and doubt. Years pass, and you look back on yourself with confusion. Once that was you, but now they seem a stranger. You wonder whose eyes those are staring back at you from your own face. You realize with concern whose eyes you see through now. They're your mother's. She has become a dark copy which reminds you of a part of yourself you wish you didn't have. A reflection which chases you everywhere you go, always just a few steps behind, to remind you that you aren't enough. The past was nothing more than this moment, repeated infinitely and refracting off itself. You were just another step towards something new in a long line of people just like you. Your mother, your mother's mother, your daughters. All of you, frozen in place, a landmark for the ones who come next. It's easy to wonder what good it does to plant your feet in the sand, and every day you watch as the horizon is pushed farther out of reach. You try to fight back, but it's all you can do most days just to hold your ground. Resistance doesn't feel like a journey, more like an endless procession of compromises just to keep your humanity. You survive one more day and hope you've been brought a day closer to finally living. You look back at where your ancestors were felled and remember why we fight. It is not, as the enemy suspects, about winning. It's about that subtle reminder to your generation and the next that we have always stood here, holding them back. That it is only through a mixture of cynical effort and optimistic hope that we have even come this far. 1,000 Times Resist is the kind of game I could make a career out of. There's enough here to talk for days without getting past the very surface of this thing. It's deceptive until the very end, and even then, it asks you to make the final reveal. There are no easy answers to be found in this place, and I gotta be honest, I don't know how the Pope would take the position that religion holds in this world. I can appreciate the subtleties just fine, but this is another case like Indica. The art is giving too much here, and it makes this far too intimate for a gift of this kind. It would be like inviting a random coworker to your poetry reading. Too raw for the level this relationship is at right now. And honestly, they just look at you like you were crazy anyway. No one's winning in this scenario. That being said, I think this may be the best contender for a game relevant to this year's theme. While most stories of hope focus on how one person can come to find it, this is the story of the use of hope to humanity as a species. It looks at the endless struggle that is resistance and sees at its heart a hope and a love for community. It shies away from the simple tale of one protagonist to become a story of a people who all have their parts to play. It's the kind of game that feels mythical in scale but intimate in interpretation. I could show you my entire playthrough and you still wouldn't have my experience of the game. So yeah, good game, but definitely glad I didn't put all my eggs in one basket in this one, or MatPat would be having one awkward conversation with the Pope. On the Popeability scale, we gotta hand this one a practically Popacious. I know some people may find that scandalous, but I have to follow my heart here. No other score would feel right. I was drawn to this game first by its cozy and casual aesthetics, then by the name Davey Wreden. If you're hoping for a Stanley Parable, then you should keep looking, but a beginner's guide may be closer to the mark, and I would assume the successor of the Prince of the Apostles would prefer that anyway. I don't take the Holy Father to be a big fan of ironic meta-narratives about the nature of choice in video games, but that's also not the best kind of attitude to have if you want a gamer Pope, so I'll immediately walk that back. New Pope probably loves the Stanley Parable. I bet he was playing it back when it was just a Half-Life 2 mod, and he was probably also streaming the Ultra Deluxe Edition the day it released. Hopefully he likes tea too. This game is Celeste meets Coffee Talk. It's like if a cat sat in your lap in front of a fireplace while you try not to think about how you're going to support yourself, much less a family, in this economy. It's like if my dad told me he was proud of me just because he wanted me to know and not for any particular reason, but then he asked me when I was planning on having kids. Safe to say, it's not as cozy as I had assumed. I'm not really sure what Pope Bobby's going to think about the plotline where you can just attack a child. This game is the newest of all the entries, so while it is the most recent, it's also the hardest to gauge on long-term popularity and impact. It had a pretty positive reception upon its release, and if it's anything like Wreden's other games, there will be enough think pieces written about this game to keep it in the zeitgeist for a couple of years at minimum. Raise your hand if you ever learned the term death of the author from a video essay about a beginner's guide. It's safe to say there's probably at least a couple of video essays worth of conversations for people to have about this game, but only time will tell if this one scratches that same itch. Wanderstop is the story of Alta, a fighter who's been having some issues with, let's call it burnout. Stabbing people unprovoked is just way clumsier coming out of the mouth. After a minute on Reddit, she realizes she needs to get good, and heads off into a magical forest looking for someone to give her training. Luckily for her, that forest is a utopian landscape where seeds grow into flowers with just a pinch of water and provide a bountiful harvest every time. After being killed with kindness by Boro, the owner of the local tea shop, Alta agrees to take a break and help run the place for a while. And that's the whole game. You plant seeds, tend the garden, take orders, make tea, and just bask in the beautiful world around you. There are no fail states and no rush to do anything before you're ready. Customers will sometimes walk up and stare at you awkwardly, but if you ignore them, they walk off again without a word. It really is a fantasy game. It's split into 5 chapters, which follow Alta's personal growth as she learns to relax and trust herself to be good, even when she's not perfect. Despite being a relatively stationary game, there's certainly an internal journey taking place, and that arc from a despairing present to a hopeful future is what the game is all about. Multiple characters start out as pretty cookie-cutter examples of bad coping mechanisms, but the more you talk with them, the more they grow into fleshed-out characters. It's like speed running a sitcom, except instead of Ross becoming a psychopath, the cursed knight who just wants his son to love him becomes a stunning reminder of the ways you sacrifice yourself to please others. Maybe my boot isn't emitting purple smoke, but I probably should look into why I think no one will love me unless I actively ignore myself to serve them instead. Oh god, did this game trick me into doing gamer therapy? First research and now this? What's next? I have to take a shower? Warning. This has been a joke about how some gamers do not take personal hygiene very seriously. In order to best ensure that you are healthy and agreeable to others, one should typically participate in the washing of one's body at least once per day. This will ensure that you do not stink like ass and make people not want to be around you. It is also preferable to apply deodorant at least once a day in order to reduce the amount of stink lines coming off the player character. These are optional side quests, but they are mandatory if you want the achievement "People like being around me."
This message has been brought to you by Big Water.
Pope Bob may not love the surprising amount of cursing present in the game, but the mindful moments in between those conversations are where the true value lies. Sitting on a bench and drinking some fresh brewed tea, reflecting on your choices while cutting down weeds like a one-woman lawnmower and sweeping leaves into the ether. Taking the time to brew a special cup of tea for your friend just to hear what he thinks. Stopping to take a picture and decorate your surroundings. These are what Wanderstop offers in abundance. What better game to get the Pope than one where you are simply tasked with taking your time and serving others? On the Popeability scale, I'd give it a pretty Pope-tastic. I went there. After consulting the sage and burning the sages... Or wait, maybe the sage was for burning and the sages were for consulting? Either way, a felony was definitely committed. I've reached my final conclusion. None of these games are good enough for the Pope. I could make an argument for any of them, and arguably I did argue for each one pretty much this whole time. Arguable. Argue. Argument. Articuno. Barbecue. What was I talking about? Anyway, the point is that none of this has an Undertale level of impact. Is it possible that there was something about Undertale that couldn't be captured by my criteria? Surely 3 words which arbitrarily start with R were all I needed to recreate such an iconic piece of internet history, but I just knew somewhere deep down that I hadn't found a funny enough answer. Not funny. Didn't laugh. For nights, I struggled to understand this X factor that Undertale had brought. What was this undefinable, unknowable thing? Could it be defined? Could it be known? I knew that there had to be a right answer to this question. It's just too funny. How can something that sounds this good on paper turn out to be a nothing burger? That's impossible. I searched high and low, far and wide, deep and less deep, but it turns out just wandering around doesn't really help you find video games. They're mostly just online or in very specific stores. The solution seemed so close, and it was. I've just been cleverly concealing it from you this entire time. I left you all the clues, Mr. Policeman. At the top of his own personal Mount Celeste. It was always here, right under your nose. And all that's left to do is climb back up that mountain. Were you paying attention? A reflection which chases you everywhere you go, always just a few steps behind. Did you catch all the hints? This game is Celeste. The game to give Pope Leo XIV was never a question. I just don't respect YouTube shorts enough to make anything that's less than 15 minutes. The game MatPat should give the Pope is Doom, Dark Ages. Are you joking? Of course we gotta get the Pope Doom! Could you imagine the Pope pulling off some sick tech while exorcising some demons with a double-barreled shotty? The world is begging for another crusade. Why not give our new Pope some inspiration? Nothing screams hope like tearing it up in hell with a mech. It's been centuries. Let the Pope have a little fun. Let him do a little war as a treat. This looks like the most Catholic game ever made. How could we not get new Pope, new Doom? It's what Uncle Ben would want. He's definitely down there, and he'd want you to shoot him again. The little bastard loves getting shot. He just keeps doing it.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? I love the young people.
So there you have it. I'll be reaching out to MatPat's people shortly to make the exchange, and all I ask for in return is that he makes a video about the process again. We must venture to hope that the internet will give us the grace which it once lacked, even though they will definitely just make fun of it again. That's what it is to be a pilgrim of hope, or something, I don't know. But I keep trying to have a moral at the end of these. Good luck, Robert Prevost of Chicago, in your new role as Pope Leo XIV. I will be watching your career with much interest. Do not make me go Ezio Auditore da Firenze on your ass.
You are not the right man to be Pope.
I got excommunicated.
Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
But now that the Pope's met his doom... Now this was during the dark ages of YouTube.
Dark ages.
Just grateful that his career hadn't met its doom too. Couldn't shut his damn mouth so much he had to face his doom 3 different times.
Doom 3.
Before he received his eternal reward.
Doom. Eternal